And I don't know if all the diversity training in the world is going to change some of these folk.
Credibility and accountability?
Yes.
One of the things that I'd like to say is kind of goes hand in hand with what Mr. Smith just said. I think, first of all, when officers encounter individuals, no matter what racial background that they come from, teaching them to have respect for those people whenever they go into a situation is first and foremost. I've known of situations where law enforcement have been on the scene of a call, and just the mere way that the individuals were treated simply because they were black approaching a situation with respect and how you're dealing with that situation can make the difference in how the outcome of that situation turns. I mean, I can walk into a place, and if my attitude is one way when I come through the door, that's going to automatically put the person that I come encounter with, that's going to automatically change their demeanor. And a lot of times it's not always spoken language. It's that body language that comes across. And one of the things that we all need to know is anybody in this room that has ever held a gun in their hand, it's a sense of empowerment that you get when you have that gun in your hand. And on top of that, when you have that gun in your hand, it's a difference in me holding my personal weapon and then me holding my service weapon, where that weapon also comes with that badge. And along with that weapon and that badge comes what Brother Nelson said: I have the justifiable right to take someone's life. That puts me on a whole nother level with if my attitude's not in the right place and if my intentions are not in the right place. One thing that definitely needs to take place along with this training is there needs to be a bigger Sheriff's Department presence in the minority neighborhoods. Don't just show up when it's a bad time. You know, at one point, I live in Sopchoppy. At one point, there were drug busts down there, looked like every week. But if the drugs bust and the drugs were so bad in that neighborhood, why hasn't some of the things that has been taken from that neighborhood through those drugs been reintroduced to the African American minority neighborhoods to put something there to deter the younger children that are coming up behind some of these? You know, you come in these neighborhoods, you want to tear them apart, but you're not bringing anything positive back to reintroduce into those neighborhoods. There needs to be something there, whether it's some type of program, an after-school program, an outreach program for children that are coming up, children, teens. Have something in this county for these children to do so they don't have to turn to be sitting in the back of a sheriff's car. You know, and if small children, like Mr. Nelson's children and other small children around here, if the only thing that they see from the Sheriff's Department is bad things and bad people, guess what? They're going to grow up to have the same attitude that a lot of us in this room have right now. You know, if we want to change the attitude that a lot of minorities and other ethnic groups have when it comes to the Sheriff's Department, there has to be some weeding and seeding. When it comes to reprogramming someone, it's hard. I've been a woman all my life. That's all I know is how to be a woman. And for somebody to come next week and say, you're going to act like a man, I'm going to retrain you to be a man, it's impossible. This is all I know. And when it's the same thing with someone that's a racist. If you're a racist, that's how you've been raised, that's all you've been taught all your life, and then as you become an adult, you've taken on some of those same things that your grandfather and your father and several generations before you have taught you. It's hard to pull that out of people and retrain them to see things in a different light. Those folks are going to have to go. They're going to have to go. And the ones that remain, they're going to have to be retrained to come into our neighborhoods and let us see them in a different light other than coming in when things go bad.
All very good points. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. I'm missing anyone over here.
My last comment. I'd like to suggest that to the sheriff that perhaps we, and I've seen it before in other places, let's stop and cite people for doing something good as opposed to just looking for the negative all the time. Let's recognize people for the good that they're doing, and perhaps it'll be infectious to others.
That's a very good point. Yes, ma'am, if you want to come up. Okay.
I want to tell you about an incident that I spoke to my friend twice in about 2 months. Her son had problems with drugs, and he was incarcerated, and he got out, and he had a test that was negative. And because of that test, the probation people were coming out to pick him up. They came at 5:30, and I thought that was the smart thing on their part. And he came to the door in those things that men wear with the tie at the top, tie on the bottom, you know, that are like flannel. You know. He had no shirt, no shoes. He did not have his glasses. My thinking is he probably said something smart, but they snatched him and put him in the car out in the cold. In the last 2 months, when it was very cold, they put him in the car with no shirt, no shoes, no glasses. So as I ponder what you should do, I realize that there are a lot of circumstances that policemen come into the repetitive. You have to pick a person up, you stop someone for speeding, you have some repetitive things. It might behoove you to think in terms of what is appropriate, that you can train these people what you should say, how you should behave, how you should place someone in a car, how you should refer to the mother who's horrified, my friend. So as you go through all the things that policemen do, pick the repetitive things and train those people how they should respond in that circumstance.
Thank you very much. The gentleman in the back, you stood up. Could you come up and talk in the mic so we can record it? If you don't mind. I'd like to get it on the record. Thank you very much.
What kind of bother me when you're living in a neighborhood and you see that some young men and some young women have problems, and then the sheriff, when you see the sheriff coming, the sheriff gonna arrest these young women, the young men. But the problem is that if a sheriff come in that neighborhood, if he get to know that neighborhood, maybe some citizen tell them that a person having problem. Like over there in my neighborhood, I see a young man walking. I don't know where he been arrested or not. But if a sheriff come out there, they gonna arrest him because he never speak and he gonna have an attitude. I think they have a medical problem. And if they got a medical problem, the family next door neighbor ain't gonna tell you about that problem until somebody get hurt. You got kids walking through the neighborhood, young girls and young boys. Some of them get raped, and then you gonna wanna go and get on this young man. This young man or woman might have a medical problem, might need medicine. Well, who responsible for that? Until somebody get killed? Now, it's a young man in Crawfordville. I'm saying this because it's my neighbor over there. I see him walking the road all the time. He have a problem. He be backwards and forwards. Some white kids doing the same thing.
It's called a Baker Act.
So, you know, it's sad in a neighborhood, but we can talk about it, but we never get to the right place until something happens. And I know if the law catch him, they're going to have a problem with that young man because he's not going to let them just carry him to jail. I don't know where he come out of Chattahoochee, where he come from, but you're going to have a problem with him. So I'd rather see something happen before it get to a big problem. Because people now keeping kids and young men and young women for money and have taken care of them. And then when they need the medication, they don't have it. But once they come to your house and break in it, somebody going, an innocent person going to end up going to jail. That's all I got to say on that. But more than me know about this young man. Be walking flip-flops all up in Crawfordville. And see, once he mess around and get hurt, we're going to say, well, we should have recognized that when we already recognized. But if the sheriff come through my neighborhood, maybe I can ask them a question. Maybe they know something I don't know. Unless I walk by there and see him beating on him, then I'm going to wonder why. But I know why. But they should have known before they started beating on him, because the young man got a problem. I feel like he have a problem. And I know more than me know about this young man in the neighborhood. And plus in my neighborhood we got about 8 or 10 young girls and boys breaking in the crab house. Faster they fix the door to kick it down. And that's a problem. And they asked me to go, the sheriff asked me to go and call the lady what's on it. I wasn't going to get involved. Because if I go in there and they find my fingerprint, they can say I've been breaking in the house. So I walk every morning and I see the kids and I know where they hide at. But that's not my kids. So I back up and I see them, long as they don't cross the road, I'm going to do like the rest of the neighbor do. I'm not going to get involved. But this young man in particular, I fear for him. This young man have a problem. I don't know whether he's on medication, come out of Chattahoochee or what. But I know he have a problem. I don't even know his name. But I pray for him, but that's all I can do, because the first thing they holler, it's not your business. But if he come across the road, it'll be my business, but I end up going to jail. Because I got some young kids that hang up my house, my grandkids, and I love them. And it's bad when you got somebody walking around your house like that, and you don't even know them. Now, we got black and white, young girls and boys. And it's sad. Then the sheriff come and asked me one day, said, you seen this young man? Yes, I've been seeing him every day. Said they've been missing for about 2 or 3 weeks. And they said, where's that? I said, in the crab house. They sitting in the road, because I be walking every morning. I thought they'd be watching me. When I go by them, they'll take the head and drop it in the truck. So what I do, I make my little round and come back by. And I watch them. But, you know, if you come in the neighborhood and ask some questions, you can get some answers. But if you don't ask no question, you don't get no answer until somebody get hurt. And I don't have no problem with the sheriff, because I don't go out there getting in no trouble. But the people around me is getting in all kind of trouble, watching people's houses, and I see what they're doing, because I'm home every day. Got trails in the woods out there and a sinkhole out there. People don't know about the sinkhole. But some of them kids going to be going missing in a sinkhole, and nobody going to know nothing about it. And those two this young man and young girl that they found them down at Wakulla High. Been missing. It's sad. And you'll be surprised when you're out there walking early in the morning what you see. You see something you don't want to see. That's where you find all the drugs at. And I didn't know what it was, these little old bit of bag like that. A friend of mine told me that's what they have drugs in. I don't know. But it's sad. But if I pick up the bag and you catch me, you say, well, you got that bag. Yes, I got the bag, but I don't know what I have. You can get the mic back, but it's sad. But if I say this, if the law go around in the neighborhood, just drive through, ask some questions. You can get a little answers. You get here, a little there.
Well, they have trust. They would have to have trust for people to give them answers.
Well, you got somebody.
Remember when we were growing up, the big black deputy sheriff, what was his name?
Stone.
Stone.
Yeah.
He would stop by, we were playing basketball out there, stop by and have a conversation. He could get anything out of it. They call it community policing, but Stone were doing that back then when we were going. You got to get out your car and have a conversation with the community. That's what you're talking about.
Thank you very much. Well, and he makes a good point. Part of the training, one of the components of the training is what I call proactive policing, which means what are you doing when you're not on a call for service? Are you going into the community, parking your car and getting out and walking and talking to people? Or do you just drive by with your window up real fast and don't have any conversation? So you're absolutely right. Community policing was being done 30 years ago by the good cops, by the good deputies. They know that if they talk to you daily, you'll give them information. They can solve problems while they're small. So that's a very good point, sir. Thank you very much.
I think the training needs to include sensitivity to the different way you treat people who have mental illness or substance abuse problems or are mentally handicapped. You can't treat everybody the same when they have those unique different problems, and you have to be more sensitive to how they're going to react and not think they're being belligerent when it may just be ignorance, or it may be they're stoned out of their mind and they don't know what they're doing. Whatever, I think there needs to be a lot more training in those areas, because a lot of police officers don't seem to know how to be different with those kind of people, which is really necessary to get anywhere with them.
You probably can't treat everybody the same, but you can be fair.
Right.
You know what I mean? When I encounter a black male with dreads, gold teeth, and his pants sagging down there, my perception of him is different than my perception of a kid that's dressed appropriately. But my perception don't make me treat them differently. And I think that's the problem. I have two sons. I treat them differently, but I'm fair with both of them. But one needs something one way, and one needs it different. So I treat them differently, but I'm fair with both of them. That's the problem I think that we have with law enforcement. If I were to pull over a white male with a Confederate flag and bumper stickers that says this, that, and the other, my awareness is going to be high. I'm not racist, but that's my awareness, and that's based on what I know. But I'm not going to treat him any differently. I'm going to treat him fairly, but my awareness is different. I'm going to treat him fairly. I think that's part of the problem. A part of the problem in law enforcement is that, kind of like you said, I think that everybody that wears a badge and wears a gun shouldn't be in law enforcement. But everybody that's teaching at the high school and middle school shouldn't either. So you're going to have that in every profession. Lawyers, doctors, professors, you're going to have that in every profession. Our job is, when you identify folk like that, you get them out. And there's a process of getting them out. You just can't go and say, you're fired, you get out of here. You document what they do, and you get them out. And that goes back to what the young man said about credibility and accountability. The other thing, Ms. Jones talked about rapport. You can't go and arrest people in a community day in and day out and expect that community to see you in a positive light. Now, mind you, I was doing a training in Orlando. Orlando is huge. The black folk in Orlando call the police office to their community. That's the thing about it. They call them and saying, get these folk out of here. Those same folk that call are distrustful of law enforcement. Because once you go in and arrest, and that's from an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, they see you coming in, arresting, but they never see you coming in doing anything with basketball or teaching them to read. If that's all they see is the negative, that's what they're going to see about law enforcement. So law enforcement from Tallahassee to Pensacola saying that they can't hire black folk, you can't hire. I wouldn't go work for you if that's all I know is the negative part of what you do. Now, maybe that's not fair, but that's the reality of it. If you're going to arrest, you got to find some way to give back to the community. And you're right. For years, they came in the black community, and rightfully so. They should have took all those drug dealers out, and they did. They confiscated guns, money, and everything, but they never invested that money back in the community to help those same people. That's part of the problem.
I certainly hope that everyone here recognizes that although the main reason we are all here is to talk about the police department and et cetera, that's really not why we're here. The police department is the face, if you will, the supposed reason, but what we're really here for, and pretty much everything that has been said here, is for each and every one of us individually, okay? We can talk, we can blame the sheriff's department for not having enough diversity and we also have to recognize that this is Wakulla County. This is a very small proportion of the people in Wakulla County, but it's just as valid here as it is in Franklin County, in Dade County, in Jacksonville County, and St. Louis County in Ferguson, Missouri, as Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. It's all over. And it's each and every one of us. Most of the things that are said here, have been said here tonight, can apply to each and every one of us. And I hope that Sheriff Creel is not taking this personally, and the Sheriff's Department is not taking it personally, but they are the face of the community, so to speak, and so they are going to have to bear up under it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention CIT training. I know it's expensive and it's a major investment for a department, but I know some departments have committed to having all of their officers have CIT training. And as the gentleman was talking about his young neighbor who seems to be a troubled person, having an officer that's CIT training can certainly prevent something like suicide by cop.
What is it?
Crisis intervention training, so that they understand to recognize these problems and how to respond to them and de-escalate instead of escalating the problem. But I think in some instances, even if you have only a few officers in the department that are CIT training, that can be infectious.
That's a valid point, and it's a common theme. What we're seeing is that there are no systems to deal successfully in our society any longer because they're not getting funded for mental illness. And as a result, our prisons and jails are filled. 30–40% of our prisons and jails are filled with people with mental illness. So now the police officer needs even more training as a result of that, and you're absolutely right. And it's available. FDLA has modules available, and I'm sure the sheriff will be receptive to bringing those on board. That's very valid feedback. I saw another hand somewhere else. Oh, and then we'll come back.
Hi. I want to tell Sheriff Creel something in reference to when a person call a police officer and say there's someone stalking outside their door. They normally, I would think, would come and search. Well, I called one year, and the one in charge said, "Oh, she don't pay her no attention," and the other female African-American police officer, lady, came in the house to calm me down. And the other people that was with him was like, wow, so they just walked around the house, and everybody basically know where I live at. But, so there's nobody there. Oh, she's just crazy. Yes, I did have 2 brain aneurysms. I am normal. I was not crazy. There was somebody outside. Less than a week later, a white American called the police in the same neighborhood, right behind me. They brought up dogs and everything. And oops, how about the people having to run in my yard? Okay, what I'm saying, if you're going to treat everybody the right way, do it fairly. And then one of the officers that was with them happened to be coming in the yard with the dog. He said, I said, I thought I was crazy. He said, I remember. Thank you. You know, and he was the head man over these other officers. And he literally like, she don't know if she talking about, nobody came over here. But when someone else called, they came out with dogs and all in my yard. I'm not crazy. And I think you should treat everybody fairly, you know, regardless of what you think of them. You know, but I called them to my house. They came and, oh, ain't nobody been out here.
Said that to you?
Yes. And told his own other officer, oh, it's all right. And the lady, I was so, ooh. And the female police officer came in my house and sat with me at the counter. And I'm talking to her, telling her everything. She said, it's all right. Don't worry about it. We're watching around. But he had told him that, oh, this is impossible. But less than the officer behind me called. As a matter of fact, this person worked at the jail. And when she called, they brought dogs and all. And the little person they saw happened to be going through my backyard, which is 3 acres, so I'm not talking about a little backyard. But you just need to treat everybody fairly when they call you for something like that.